back to the DNC and Vice President Harris last night predicting what a second Trump presidency would mean for women and reproductive rights.
As a part of his agenda, he and his allies would limit access to birth control, ban medication abortion, and enact a nationwide abortion ban with or without Congress. Simply put, they are out of their minds. One must ask, why exactly is it that they don't trust women? Well, we trust women.
And many of those restrictive policies are found in the conservative blueprint, Project 2025. But Trump himself, he says he is not endorsing them. Dr. Kelly Morrison joins us now. She was a Minnesota state senator and is now running for the U.S. Congress as a Democrat. And she's been a practicing OBGYN for more than 20 years. Dr. Morrison, thank you very much for joining us. What did you make of Harris's warning last night, and how big of an issue is this going to be in the final stage of this campaign?
Well, good morning, and thank you for having me. It's a pretty exciting time in Minnesota here. Our governor is the official Democratic nominee for vice president. The state fair started yesterday. We're pretty fired up here in Minnesota. Certainly reproductive rights, I think the vice president said it so well. We need to trust women. We've seen a maternal health crisis unfold across the country in the wake of the Dobbs decision. And I think we have to, Donald Trump ran for office in 2016, and his win is one of the reasons I got into politics and ran for the state legislature in the first place. Because he ran on appointing justices to the court with the explicit goal of overturning Roe versus Wade. It's one of the few campaign promises that he kept. That's exactly what he did, and that's exactly what happened. So I knew, and people in the OBGYN community knew what his election would mean for reproductive health care in the country. So I was proud as the only OBGYN in the Minnesota legislature to help lead the effort to protect and expand access to reproductive health care here in Minnesota. But we need to understand that even in states that have passed protections, those will be at risk if Trump is elected president. So this is an essential part of this campaign. We have an opportunity as Americans to vote for freedom and the future.
And Dr. Morrison, I'm sure you've noticed this. Donald Trump has tried to pivot back towards the political center on this issue of abortion. What have you made of that?
Well, I'm sure he wishes and hopes that abortion would not be part of the campaign, because he understands now how unpopular that is. We've watched ballot initiatives pop up across the country in blue states, in red states, and in purple states. Americans, regardless of their political affiliation, don't want politicians making their private medical decisions for them, and they don't want them in their bedrooms. You know, Governor Walz sharing his family's infertility struggle, I think really captures how this is an issue that touches all of us. This is not just a women's issue or a girl's issue. This is an American issue.
And Dr. Morrison, 9 states are set to have abortion measures on their ballots come November. You have a medical understanding of how nuanced maternal and reproductive care is. And one of the things that came up time and again during this convention, we heard story after harrowing story from women talking about these just nightmare experiences that they've been through in their respective states because of some of these draconian laws that have been coming down from elected officials on the Republican side.
That's right. I mean, some just incredibly brave women and families shared their stories. Harrowing is the word that you used, and it's very accurate, absolutely terrifying and dangerous. And I think it's one of the reasons it's so important that at this moment in history, we have a pro-choice OBGYN in Congress who understands the science and the medical clinical decision making that goes into these decisions. Even in some of the states who have enacted exceptions for the life of the mother, as they put it, are dangerous in themselves. They further endanger women's lives, because pregnant women can withstand a lot of blood loss. They can withstand a lot of insult up until the moment that they can't. And so at what point is a woman's life in danger? You cannot legislate that. You need to leave that decision making to the patient and to her medical care providers. We don't need anti-choice politicians in our hospitals and in our examining rooms making those decisions. The medical nuance is important, and it needs to be left to patients and their doctors. We need to trust women, as Vice President Harris so aptly put it.
And Dr. Morrison, finally, one of the more touching moments of this DNC centered around Tim Walz's son, Gus, who was overcome with emotion watching his father speak. I think it just touched a lot of people around this country, and that did not stop some on right-wing social media from mocking him. I mean, obviously, we don't want to elevate and amplify those kinds of people out there, but I do want to give you, a Minnesotan, a response, a chance to respond to that because of just that touching moment that we saw the other night. What did you make of that?
Well, I don't think there were many dry eyes among Americans, regardless of their political affiliation, watching that moment. This is obviously a father and a mother and their two children who love and adore each other. That was a moment that didn't surprise us here in Minnesota because we know and love our governor and we know how much he loves his children. Remember, too, that he and Gwen named their daughter Hope after their struggle with infertility because she represented hope in the future to them. So I think the contrast between this political family and the other choice is pretty stark. These are people who love their families, who care about their neighbors, and who care about Americans.
Dr. Kelly Morrison, thank you very much for your time this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.